Hello. This first of the future workplace, and this episode is how home working will change the office. I've got Joe Bosson on here, so I'm going to bring him in. My name's Guy, and from Stansons, and we do acoustics, blinds, and curtains for the workplace designers. And Joe's got a really interesting perspective from his experience in workplace design, but also being one of the Mixology 30 under 30 rising stars of 2020. I thought we couldn't not bring him on. So hello, Joe. Tell us about yourself quickly.
Yeah, I'm Joe. I work for Space Lab. I've done as a Part 2 architect, so still not fully qualified, but one more year to go. Yeah, so a mix of interior stuff, workplaces, and also stretch to private residential and community spaces as well.
Packer. No, that's good. Let's jump straight into it. If anyone throughout the live broadcast wants to ask any questions, please do. We love getting comments, and I'll push them all over to Joe. We'll do what we can to answer them anyway. So yeah, live questions, throw them in. We want to hear them, so go for it. But first of all, Joe, we were just chatting about like what to consider when teams are working from home, and I think that's a really important question. It's something that you personally were passionate about, because it's easy just to think of ourselves or people that we directly see working from home, but as maybe directors or managers or leaders, what we should be considering for when our teams are working from home. I think it's good. Can you kick us off with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's quite a major one, because obviously people's experience from working from home is completely different. When you're in the office, it's just the office environment that you have to worry about, and you have that interaction with people and you sort of read people. Whereas when everybody's working from home separately, you don't know what their setup's like, their different stresses. Work becomes very personal, I guess. And I guess it's easy to forget that as well when you only see people possibly for, I don't know, a couple of minutes a day on Zoom. Yeah, I guess you've got to consider people's spaces, the stresses they have, and some people must love it, some people might not. So I guess that's just got to be a big consideration, really, and not everybody's going to be the same.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. I was reading a report how different age groups have actually reacted differently, and I actually found it quite surprising. But millennials are suffering a lot more from working from home than sort of baby boomers and older generations, which I found really surprising till I read more into it. And it was saying that millennials come to work to socialize. The flexibility they're fine with, but they come to work to get their social fix and all the sort of clubs and everything that work offers and the social spaces. Whereas so work is a place they go, whereas an older generation, it's work is more a thing they do. So they go to work and they leave again, and they tend to be a bit more established, maybe have bigger houses, maybe a space that they can call their own in their house. And so older generation are finding they're better set up and are less missing the work social as a rule of thumb than millennials, which I found really interesting. So I guess when we've got teams, we might need to consider differently for different people, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely fall into that category where work and life is merged into one. So then to take that interaction with your work friends out of the case, then yeah, you do start to miss it.
Yeah, and I think people's roles as well, and think that you've had working on projects, that how people's roles and what they require, what to consider.
Yeah, I guess for us, so in our I guess setup, personally, I'm very much, I'd go into the office and be there all day. So for me not to be in the office, it makes quite a big difference. Whereas maybe some people go to a lot more site meetings or they're out and about doing pitches, so it might not make much difference to them. They might be use the office as a base, which I guess is where things will be going. But it's a big change from sitting in the office every day. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and then as we touched on, but people's environments are so different, aren't they? Like, I was talking to one guy and I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" So I think it's like, "Guy, it's awful. I'm in a basement flat, so it's not great for me for working from home at all." And he couldn't wait to get back. So
yeah,
I think it all depends. How do, Joe, from your experience, how do you think people's working from home experience will drive change in the office going forwards?
I think it's because of COVID. It's sort of been a catalyst to a movement that was already happening, where people were trying to be more, and in line with what we were saying about the millennials, in line where people wanted that more of a mix of work and home. Offices were becoming more, I guess, even down to the furniture, more home-like, more breakout spaces, everything like that. So I guess COVID's forced maybe more traditional practices as well to break that. And I think both sides have seen positives. So there's like the overheads for the business side, and then people have got a bit more time to take the dog for a walk, stuff like that. So I think there'll be a change. There'll be a drive from both the employees and the employers, but I think it'll still be a mix. I think people still want an office because, like we said, some people may not be enjoying working from home at all.
Yeah. No, I think people's positive experiences from working from home will still drive change in the office. So if they've had flexibility at home to take an Amazon delivery, I was reading a report that people will be wanting to see those kind of locker facilities in offices, so they can almost have the office like more of a home and the home like more of an office. And then people's negative experiences of being at home, so not seeing people and missing that social interaction, that they would obviously want to see that from the office in an even greater way. So I guess
I think it's also surprised some employers. I think they were probably against it maybe, and now they can see actually what can be done. Productivity, apparently I was reading the report, productivity is up. I think it's probably a bit more varied than just saying it's up. But yeah, so I think even the more traditional practices may really encourage remote working. And a lot of studies have said, what I've read, that people don't want to go back to the office full time. Now this is sort of a sliding doors moment where they've seen this side of things, and maybe they don't want it completely, but I think they will push for a bit more flexibility and trust, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of habits forming right now, isn't? I mean, we were talking just before we went live, but some people are taking the opportunity to work out a lot more. Some people are taking the opportunity to pick up new habits, learning an instrument, cooking, or whatever. And then people aren't going to want to just lose those. So they're going to either want to be able to carry on those habits and hobbies from the office, or with the office making a facility for them to do it at home, I guess.
Yeah. I think the offices, if people do want to have offices and have them full time, I think they've got to become a lot more personal. But I think in general, workplaces will become a lot more human centered, really. And I do think a lot of offices will, obviously we're talking about offices but can remote. Obviously there's a lot of jobs that can't, but where you can, I think people will choose to. And I think just talking to people, it sounds like most people want 2 or 3 days, half and half type thing.
Yeah, are you having those conversations with your clients, I guess? And what are you kind of picking up from that?
I think it's just a mix of clients, friends, family. Everyone seems to. I think it's the choice. They like the choice. I both like working from home and the office. I quite like the office. But obviously, if you can organize your work around your personal life, other commitments a little bit easier because of the flexibility. And I think people would choose that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I also had you mentioned about the furniture becoming more homey, and definitely seeing a bit of a trend with sort of a resi-mercial design, if you like. I mean, we get asked for it tons because curtains are suddenly becoming the very latest thing to have, which is good for us. But yeah, is that something that you're implementing in terms of furniture? And
I think we have done for the past few years, to be honest. I think it's people they don't want to see necessarily a cold, sterile workplace, or a workplace that has the old I don't know, 90s chairs that look a bit worn and dated. So I think people are longing for that a little bit, but obviously now even more so. And I think offices, you mentioned it before about how they want to push their brand, and I think offices right down to the furniture and how the space looks. And not only that, we've said it for years at Space Dad, that the space is quite impactful on how you work. So if you can have a more relaxed environment, then why not? And people would probably enjoy it more and be more productive as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. That brings us on to another question that came in: what people are now looking for from a workspace. It was interesting because I'm quite a massive believer in culture and how workplace atmosphere impacts culture and brand. And I mean, personally, I'm quite passionate about that. But I think companies are putting all of this into their staff and into their brand. And then if they're working at home and their values company culture will get diluted. So they're physically around it less. So I think that when we come into the office, we need a bigger shot of brand experience. And I think the offices almost come like a showroom and a brand experience for staff. I mean, also external visitors as well, but I think it'll be considered for internally. I don't know if you're finding that on your schemes at all.
Yeah, massively. I think yeah, it's definitely become a showroom. It's going to become, it feels almost like when you say like that, like a office away day or an office, I don't know how to call it, something a bit better than that. But yeah, it sounds like, but you'll be in the office and you'll almost like a big branding experience where everybody gets together, a bit of a town hall. So I think, yeah, workplaces will be definitely either shared with others, so it might be a bit more stripped back, or they will be large, adaptable spaces where they can have people together or have clients in separate meeting rooms, but they can then open it up and they become this large auditorium type thing where they can host events. Maybe I guess they become a lot more multifunctional.
Yeah, no, I agree. I appreciate that. There's thank you, Jilly, for your comment. We're hearing the word resi-mercial come in a bit, but yeah, I think it's come with curtains, especially for us. It's just huge. Like, and we're now seeing very, very domestic curtains in offices, and I think Joe, you'd be able to say better than me, but we're seeing tons of like furniture as well, even when we're just working on schemes and layouts and lights and pendant lights and rugs and wall coverings and wallpapers. But I know you're designing spaces.
Yeah, no, it just softens the whole space, I guess. And like for example, curtains, they're so flexible as well. You can just pull them back and it becomes a large space. And I think, but they have both. They have the softness of a home and a residential, but also the flexibility that probably offices are going to need nowadays. I think they were probably coming in more so with the residential field before, but now even more so. And then like we're changing our office at the moment and into a bit more of a co-working space, and downstairs we're having a bit more of a, like I said, an event space. But then we have 3 or 4 meeting rooms split up by curtains, and I think the whole I don't know. Obviously, it's going to change with different sectors and everything like that. But I do think there's a gradual shift towards soft furnishings being way more standard and nicety, I guess.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, thanks very much, Gilly. I love the comment. Thank you. I've got another one come in here for you, Joe, from Perry. So thank you, Perry, for your comments. People keep rolling them in. It's good to have Joe here live answering these questions. Perry's asking, how will office lighting change? Very good question.
It depends on the office as well, doesn't it? Obviously, if you've got a large, huge office, overall lighting levels are still going to have to be quite bright, and you possibly would still see like loads of strip lights. But I guess there'd be more condensed areas where you have like more study spaces, which are a bit more. They've got a nice bit of a glow, and maybe it starts to become in tune with the circadian rhythm, where it's a bit more human centered, and these spaces are a bit more flexible as well. So people may not work the standard hours; they may come in when they like. So it might be something to do with that. I guess for us, in our office we've got a mix of was before refurb, but we had a mix of sort of quite commercial light fittings, but also in smaller areas where there's booths, and it was a lot more intimate, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't think it will like massively change, but it might just become a bit softer and a bit more resi-mercial.
Yeah. No, I think just the fixtures and fittings across the board, which would obviously include lighting, will just become more of a home look and feel, what we'd expect to see in a house or in a hospitality sector, restaurants, hotels, like that type of thing is what it's gonna all start to look very similar, isn't it, rather than being different spaces. And which is also comes a lot to sort of localized lighting, sort of lamps and that type of thing, which you would have in a lounge room rather than just main, whatever you call it, big lights. No, thank you very much, Perry. Appreciate the question. I hope that answers it for you. Keep firing in the questions. I've got them viewers here. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Got some more questions here for Joe as well. What trends and changes can we expect to emerge? You touched very quickly on your own office space, and I think that's I've not heard of anything like that before, so I think it's a really interesting change that you've done to your office. So tell us a bit about that, Joe. I found that enlightening.
Yeah, so it's been in the pipeline for a few years, but obviously now is a great time to do it, and aligns with a lot of other people's values, I guess, around the world now. But our office is changing into a bit more of a public space, I guess. So it becomes a coffee bar, co-working space, event space, art gallery. It's a bit more of a mix, and it becomes a bit more adaptable, I guess, to the future. So whatever happens next, hopefully would be ready, or there'd be something that can happen there. But also with less people maybe being in the office as soon as we go back, having 3 or 4 different activities going on, so like a coffee bar and art gallery, it creates a little bit more of a buzz. I also think that offices, especially larger offices, may downsize into, I guess, regional bases where people can sort of plug in, have a base for which is close to home, either regional or could even be global. Now it seems that globalization is a lot easier for a company. They only need 1 or 2 people to be around the world, and they're suddenly a global entity. And obviously the cost that's associated with that is so much more minimal than having huge bases around the world. So yeah, I think shared spaces from offices, maybe smaller bases, anything that is adaptable, I think.
So when you say your office is becoming a public space, what do you mean by that? Can I just walk in any time?
Well,
How's that going to pan out in real life?
I guess it's sort of a semi-public space where, yeah, you can walk in, grab a coffee and go. There'll be tables there you can. Obviously, to use it as a fully co-working space, it's not, you can't just maybe walk in. It's not quite like a coffee shop, but I guess there's some sort of, you won't get the benefits as well if you do. But yeah, I guess it's having that interesting mix of, there may be some people in there you don't know, some public, but then you have that, whereas people will start to have, when they have memberships, you start to see it more and more, and maybe you end up collaborating more with people in different sectors that you wouldn't ordinarily go out and find just because of the locality, and they thought this, having a co-working space close to them was good. So I think it's interesting, and it provides a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What you also said about multifunctional spaces, I found useful, like being able to turn them into auditoriums, being able to have it as a coffee shop, being able to have it as a co-working space. So you might have less of your staff there, but it's still got that buzz, and it's still got that that social atmosphere, I guess, which is what everybody's looking for, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, especially now, it's like, I can imagine a lot of workplaces, if you were to go straight back into it now, but with half the numbers, it would feel quite secluded and quite empty. You'd obviously still be happy to see your work friends, but it wouldn't still have that buzz with before, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And any new viewers jumping on, please share us your questions for Joe. We can fire them over to him. It'd be good to hear them. He's from Space Lab. He's one of the Mixology 30 under 30 rising stars of 2020. So, Joe, just coming back to you, that what trends we can expect to see in the office. We're obviously going to see a lot more communal spaces, that goes without saying, and we're obviously going to see a lot more sort of AV rooms, so people can do this type of thing, I guess, and Teams calls and bringing people together. Are you particularly just getting a demand from your clients on the schemes you're working on? How's that for you?
I think it's a bit of a mix. I think it's a mix of opinion on, obviously everyone's still a little bit cautious of what's going on. So some people are holding off a little bit, but the ones which are going ahead they're being massively more up for adaptable spaces and social, and having smaller AV rooms. Some are completely changing their usage. So maybe it's 4 floors of complete desks, and now it's half a floor of desks, and the rest is a bar, social space, meeting rooms, all this sort of stuff. So I think it's really interesting, and obviously it's hard to know exactly where it's going to go, but I think it's quite a good guess to say it would be these sorts of spaces. And I'm hoping that a lot of businesses do see the need for these spaces still, rather than completely getting rid of their offices, because I think people would lack that interaction. And I think at the end of the day, businesses would suffer, especially in the creative industry, where it is that interaction and collaboration that often pushes ideas.
Oh, definitely. I think companies do realize, I know we're very passionate ourselves, but if you don't have the team together, you don't have the culture, and then you start to have fragmentation. Then with fragmentation becomes breakdowns of levels of trust, communication, all that type of thing. And that just spells for sort of failure quite loudly. Yeah. So having people coming together, even just to build relationships, I say even relationships is the most important thing for us at Stanson's, with our top brand value being people come first. And I know Space Lab, you're actually very similar value, don't you? Putting people first.
I think that was our tagline 2 years ago as well.
Yeah, we had people come first, and we still do. And that's just as important for internal as it is external, if you know what I mean.
Yes, massively. And I think even more so now. I think having people that, having either directors or specific people in the company that can push push these relationships between people, and either through, I don't know, events like physical events, meetups, or how different processes via Zoom, or I know my sister they all got sent like gift hampers when they'd usually have their away day when throughout lockdown, stuff like that. So I think there's a massive demand for those sorts of roles in businesses now.
Yeah, I was recently talking to the managing director of a large construction firm, and they were doing a charity cycle ride, which was absolutely fantastic, and raising money for charity, and they raised a tremendous amount of money as well. But I was chatting to him afterwards, and it was so interesting, because I was saying it's brilliant what you've done for the charity, but also seeing all your people pull together and do something difficult together in the form of a cycle, like a long distance cycle ride. And it wasn't just the cyclist. There was tons more people in the office supporting, and all that, and everyone sort of helping raise money, and they're all pulling together and all part of it, even if they weren't cycling. It was just so great for team bonding. And I was saying, it's just as good, it's just as important as the both things are so key, if you know what I mean. And I just think, that's something that we're seeing, that almost working from home is driving the need of those socials more, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, as we're social creatures, really, aren't we, as humans? So I think that's never going to go away. I think the more we limit it, then the more people will probably mentally struggle as well.
Yeah. Just going to touch back to Perry. Thank you very much, Perry, for your comment there. It's interesting how many offices are still having a lot of linear lighting and people switching to LED. I think that's a big thing, and I think it's a good move as well. I mean, I'm saying for myself, Joe will be able to say more, but from a sustainability and environmental aspect, which is huge. Now, I've done a live broadcast before with George Elliott Smith. It was the sustainability change mission, and I think that's a key reason for people moving over to LED. Perry, if you haven't, how you're finding it, but Joe, have you got anything to add on that?
I think it just comes with the whole idea that work's a lot more personal now, and it's a sort of a conscious thing now, isn't it, as well? Climate and how what our impact is on the environment, our surroundings. I think most people would, where they can, would prefer to have eco-friendly offices where they're sustainable in terms of their energy output, materials we put in there. I think it's becoming much more standard, which is good. Obviously, there's still a long way to go, but I think more so what we're seeing now is that any new project, there is a strand of sustainability, whether it's small or big, there's normally in there. So hopefully it just keeps getting pushed. I mean, it'd be quite interesting. Have you heard of the WELL standard?
Yeah,
I think that's really quite interesting, where it's really down to people centered. It's down to nutrition. It's down to everything. So I think that would be quite nice if that became a standard in the industry, which more or less every project complied to. I mean, it's hard. It's a difficult standard to comply to, but I think it would be good for people in general.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a designer last night from a big design practice, and she was saying they're working on more and more sustainable schemes, but they're looking to make every scheme like at a particular sustainable WELL standard, regardless of if the client asks for it or not. Almost how sort of Brewdog have gone sort of carbon negative, and that they will just, all their schemes will be known to be have a certain sustainability rating, certain sustainability level, which I found interesting. It's not necessarily going to be client driven. It will be down to the company's values and what they want to design and implement.
Yeah, And I think the more people do it, the more that will become standard, and people will have to catch up. And I think clients will eventually. It will be client driven as well. I think it'll be a bit of both. I think people will want it more so, whether it's from a business point of view or from just a very conscious point of view.
Yeah, just touching on and how that sort of ties in with home working affecting the office. Have you experienced anything with how transport and commuting to the office will change?
I mean, for me, I cycle in, so it won't personally change mine. But I do think I've spoken to a few people, and they were saying post-lockdown, they would be much more up for cycling into the office or walking rather than taking public transport, partly due to hygiene now, and that they're conscious of that. But I also do think that in general, people are being way more aware of their impact. I think early lockdown showed that the CO2 level was dropped by about 60% in London. So I think people are a lot more aware now. So I think if they had the choice, people would do the right thing. But it just depends if they do have that choice.
Yeah, I mean, I know with all the changes in lockdown, I cycle as well, but I'm seeing a lot more people cycle, and I hadn't been to London for a bit during lockdown, and after that, when I came back, I was like, oh, there's all these cycle lanes everywhere, and everything had changed, and I was like, oh wow, it's fantastic as a cyclist to have that, but I mean, and it's also great from an environmental aspect, of course, and that's all part of the world standard, isn't it? Encouraging cycling to work or sort of walking or anything like that. Got another question coming, Joe. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your questions. Keep them coming. Like to hear them while we've got Joe live. Percy, thanks for your question. He's asking Joe, how realistic do you think it is in the short term, and when do you think we'll reach a point when well is a norm in the industry? Asking you to look in your crystal ball now.
I mean, short term, I think it's quite, for short term, I think for projects to go through short term, it's got to be quite driven by either the client or the designer. I do think you've got to fight for it a little bit at the moment. I think it is quite difficult, but I think it is getting there, and I think a lot of the decisions will be less conscious. People will do similar type of things soon. To get to a point where well becomes norm in the industry, I think that might take a little bit of a while. As far as I'm aware, I think it's also quite expensive at the moment, so people may not actually qualify for the well standard, but they might try and align their products with it, or their products with it, sorry. Because if they do care about their employees and I think in business in general, I think we know now, it's hard to quantify it, but we know that our environment around us, and better it is for us, I think we are more productive, and businesses often do well. So yeah, I don't know when it's going to become industry norm, but I'm hoping soon. Or there'll be similar standards that will also come into play, I guess.
Yeah, I think almost COVID's actually sped it up, hasn't it? Like, I mean, I found that stat really interesting, what you said. I had never heard that before. About the pollution in London.
Don't take that as golden,
Sorry?
but don't take the 60% as golden, but I think it was about right.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is. I just had never heard it before, and I was like, oh wow, that's very cool. But I know, regardless of the stat, it felt different. For sure.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like you physically breathing the air and cycling around London, it physically felt different. So, which is what I noticed myself just as a cyclist. So, no, thank you, Percy, for the question. It's good. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else that's got any comments, to fire them in while we've got Joe. We haven't got too much longer. But yeah, Percy, well is expensive, especially with the green wall water features requirement at the moment, and I don't claim to know much about green wall or water feature requirements, but Percy, you're probably somebody that knows, or Joe, you may know.
Down to the detail, not a lot, but I guess in terms of what it can do, I did do dissertation on the office space and predominantly oxygen levels as well, so how people can clean air through non-mechanical means such as plants and stuff. So I think short term it is very expensive. Hopefully the more people do it, the less expensive it will get. But people did find that there was an increase in productivity. So it depends on where people want to. Short term it might be more expensive, but long term, and I guess hopefully more the technology gets better. Maintenance of things like this, because often maintenance is quite a big factor. It's not just the upfront cost. So hopefully the more they become maintenance free, they become more affordable as well for people.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other questions coming in. I'll just check to make sure I haven't missed anybody. Thank you very much for them all, everybody. Any live viewers on now, any questions you want to pop in? Other than that, I think we're done on time, Joe. So I'm looking at my clock. I'm actually still an hour out. I haven't changed my watch since since the hour change, but I think we're done on time. So thank you very much, Joe. Really appreciate you joining this live and sharing your knowledge. It's been invaluable.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to be on. Sorry.
No, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Now, if there's any one else you would like us to interview next, then drop it in the comments below. We want to hear, and we're running this broadcast, the future workplace, and we're picking different topics and different people. And so if you've got any ideas, you know anyone that would be good at it and has got some interesting ideas, then fire them over in the comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Goodbye.